Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to part 7 of my Kaurismaki season. And today we're going to talk about the Match Factory Girl from 1990. Again, this is on the Kaurismaki Artificial Eye box set, Blu-ray box set, which I would highly recommend. So far in this series we've kind of Kaurismaki's alternated between quote-unquote serious kind of slice of life films and more offbeat. So we started with like Crime and Punishment and then went Calamari Union. We did Ariel, and then we did Leningrad Cowboys Go America. So this is back to more of the realism of life in Finland. We're introduced to the match factory first and the process of making matches before we're introduced to the match factory girl called Iris, played by Kati Uutinen, who is a regular for people who have watched Kaurismaki films or have been watching this series so far. So we see the mechanised making of the matches. We see her at work doing menial repetitive tasks along with other women. She rents a house with her mum and her stepfather. It's in a fairly run-down apartment, as most of the apartments that Kaurismaki's characters live in Finland. So there's like naked brickwork inside the apartments and the houses. It's a film that doesn't have much dialogue. I do seem to be talking about Bresson quite a bit with the Dardanelles. And you do get the feeling that the Match Factory Girl is very Bressonian. It's just under 70 minutes long. It's a very economical film. Like I said, not a lot of dialogue. Kati Uutinen has one of those faces that looks as though she's going to burst into tears at any point. At one point she is seen crying while she's watching a Marx Brothers film. We kind of get into her character by what she does in her spare time. She goes to the dance hall looking for not only just some company but a man. There's a beautiful scene of 5 women, including Iris, sitting on a bench, and each one in turn is picked by a guy apart from Iris, who sits drinking bottles of Jaffa orange juice. I don't know whether that's alcoholic or not. Somebody in the comments can let me know if that's an alcoholic drink or just Jaffa orange juice. So one day after payday she sees a lovely red dress in a shop window, decides to buy it. She takes it home. Her stepfather slaps her and calls her a whore, and her mother tells her to take it back, get the money back, because money's too tight to mention. Instead she goes out to another bar and catches the eye of this bearded balding man who seems a bit more well off. So they hit it off, and it cuts to she has stayed over in his house, but they have different views of what their tryst meant. She is looking for something deeper, and he leaves 1,000 mark note next to her. So he's obviously thinking perhaps she was a professional girl. So she takes this as being more serious than the guy does, who looks a bit like a balding Richard Branson. But he obviously lives in a much nicer apartment, and it's, you know, there's no naked brickwork in his apartment. So again, she wants him to contact her, and she gets more and more depressed as he doesn't. There's lovely little details, you know, in a little restaurant she's eating a bit of cake, and right next to her is this huge ashtray covered in like cigarette butts. It's just a wonderful observational point. You know, when they switch the TV on at home, it's just all about Tiananmen Square and just different terrible news stories of just bad news. You just get this feeling of oppression during the film. Again, like I said, Katty Outenen's face is just a face that looks as though it's going to burst into tears all the time, as she is just weighed down by this drudgery of her job and her life, and she does want this knight in shining armour to come and rescue her, but strangely enough he's not interested in that. She gets the news that she's actually pregnant, so she wants to obviously let him know, so she sends him this letter, delivers it by hand, and he sends a letter by post, which is typed, not handwritten, which pretty much says get rid of the brat, and sends a cheque for 10,000 marks, I believe. And obviously she is distraught about that, and for a reason I won't get into, she ends up in the hospital. Her stepfather turns up and says, you know, you've disgraced us, you need to leave. And another wonderful Kaurismaki touch, he leaves the cheque with an orange on top, because he cares about her so much. He has brought in an orange at least. And then she moves in with her brother, who's sporting a wonderful Kaurismakian mullet. It's a fairly spectacular mullet. If we know from earlier in his films, facial hair and mullets were quite spectacular. Obviously the Leningrad Cowboys take that to the nth degree with hilarious effect. And the last plot point that I'll mention is she ends up buying some rat poison. Again, if you're watching and you're wanting some light, cheery, knockabout fun, The Match Factory Girl's probably not that. It does have some of that jet black Kaurismakian humour in a few places. There's a wonderful scene where Iris tells one of her colleagues that she's pregnant, and the colleague's response is really, and then just walks off. There is some wonderful black humour near the end of the film, which I won't spoil. But overall, it's another really good Kaurismaki film. Again, I do find myself preferring the more offbeat films to the quote-unquote serious films, but this is still a great little film. Again, about 68-69 minutes. Doesn't outstay its welcome. Again, if it was 2 hours long, it would probably be a little bit too oppressive. Again, really economic, really efficient filmmaking. Again, music plays its part, as it does in all Kaurismaki films so far. Again, there's nods to other films, not just the overall Bressonian feel to it, but like I said, there's a scene where she's crying at a Marx Brothers film. It's just another wonderful little film of Kaurismaki, again showing real life, showing characters that other people don't really bother about, showing the mundane jobs that the majority of people actually have. And again, this need and desire to escape. Iris does escape when she reads books. She does smile when she reads some books that we see, but overall there's not a lot of joy in her life, and she is just trying to escape and have some happiness. Also, the film would suggest that that's not possible and you're not going to have happiness, which, to be fair, is a fair point. So thanks very much for watching part 7 of Kaurismaki. Again, let me know what you think of the Match Factory Girl, and hopefully you'll join me again for part 8. So this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying now we know where matches come from, and farewell.